Okay, welcome back. Now we're getting into the making it happen. We've had all the great ideas. We've had all the dreams, all the possibilities of how you can drive innovation and growth. So how do you make it happen? This session is about the hard and the soft of making it happen. The hard being the project culture. And you will hear why every CEO today should be a project manager. But it's also about the soft to go with that, which is about how do you engage the right culture, particularly in a diverse global organization. So from the soft to the strong and hard. Antonio.
Thank you, Peter. I always believed in projects. In fact, innovation, ideas without projects is wishful thinking. It's just nice dreams. I've always seen myself as a project leader. Actually, all of you here in this room, you are project leaders. Either you know it or not, but you are project leaders, and you're going to become even more project leaders. The world around us, everything around us has become projects, and I'm going to prove it to you in my couple of slides. Before that, I wanted to share a personal story. You always see these brilliant CVs of the speakers, of the gurus. I'm going to tell you my personal story. I spent the beginning of my career in PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the top consulting firms in the world. I spent 10 years in PwC. I became the expert in project. In fact, they call me the global lead practitioner of project and change management. I did research. I worked in many projects for corporates, for the government, for schools. I believed strongly that project was something that every organization needed. They needed some help. They needed some skills. They needed some frameworks. They needed some capabilities in order to execute their strategies. So in a firm like PwC, it's a partnership, so there's no room for everyone. It's a pyramid, so the career path is very clear. You have the pyramid, either you manage to meet the requirements to go to the next level, or you drop, you're out. I kept climbing the ladder, and I reached the level before partner. Partner is that great position. You're in the ivory tower, you make lots of money, you're famous, important. I wanted to be one like that. And my business case, so in order to be partner, you need to have a business case, a business idea, and say, dear partners, if you invest in my idea, I'm going to make 2 to 3 million for you every year, so please make me partner, believe in me. My business idea was crystal clear. I had no doubts. Every company in the world needs advice because they're struggling with their projects. So I did some research, I prepared my slides, I made a very nice pitch to 12 partners. There was just one woman, by the way, talking about diversity at the time. But I was so confident I would make partner. I partied the whole night. Actually, I paid the bill for the whole bar because I was so confident. The day after, the managing partner of PwC calls me into his office, 8:32, and he says, I ran to the office, top floor, of course, partner top floor. So I went, ran, his name was Roger, and he says, Antonio, we love your presentation. You were amazing. We see the passion. We see that you mastered the topic. However, you're fired. I was fired because the partners thought that project management was irrelevant, that everybody could do projects successfully, that a firm prestigious as PwC was not going to sell project advisory services. So it was very painful. I didn't know what to do with my life. I spent 10 years working really hard trying to become an expert, and the next day I was on the street. I didn't know what to do. Should I go to marketing, sales? That's easy. You always know what to go. And I decided to focus on my passion. And I think it paid off. It was a long way to get there. But I'll show you why today projects is something that is fundamental for achieving change, growth, and transformation. I'm going to cover a couple of topics, and I'm going to be very practical. This is probably ground zero of all the presentations, practical and to the point. First of all, I want to talk to this disruption. We've all heard about artificial intelligence, robotics here, massive transformation, mega trends, sharing economy, blockchain, fintech. These are all disruptions. These are all changes that we see. We see them. They're coming. They're already hitting us. But there's one change, one massive shift that nobody has talked about it. And I'm going to talk about it right now here on Odense, 10th of May. I'll show you some data from the UK Department of Economic History, hundreds of years of data. And there's a trend going on in the world, in organizations, which is more and more and more and more companies are doing less in operations. This is mega trends. This is 105 years of data, starting from 119. So at the beginning, when Taylor was there or Henry Ford, it was all about operations, all about getting one thing done, doing it well. It's about productivity, perfection, cost reduction, efficiency. But as the world evolved, we were doing better and better that part. We were doing better and better. At one point, we had business process reengineering, total quality management. That was all to do operations better, cheaper, faster, more efficient. What happened is that people had to be more creative, more ideas, coming with new projects, and the amount of projects was increasing. At one point, you started with ERP system. All of your companies have SAP, ERP. That's automating operations. You don't automate the change. You cannot. Yeah, we talk about robots and all this exponential transformation is going to hit operations. Yeah, this is about 60% today of a business, of an organization is run through projects. And this is going to go steep, because operations is going to be automated. So in the future, very soon, companies will be run through projects. Not just companies, education. If you look at schooling, even MBAs, business schools, now today, schools teach our kids through projects, more and more. Business schools, more and more projects. So it's not just for business. Also, governments are starting to work in project mode. Northern Ireland, they're working in projects because it's faster, it's short term. You can work in teams transversally and get results quick. Let me give you another fact. I always love to find facts so that things become very clear. Google has this application called Ngram. Ngram, Google digitalized all the books they could find for 120 years, I think. They're all in the system. So you can search words, keywords. So what I did here is I go to Ngram, I use some of the business words we've been hearing throughout this day and yesterday. And I wanted to show you how this word compared to others has been published. So this is a question to you, a test. Which one of these lines, which word is the mostly highly published today? And you have here 6 options. Yes. Innovation number 1 on the top. Any other views? Projects. I like you. Any other views?
6.
Which one? 6? Rita mentioned that yesterday, if you were paying attention. Strategy. Strategy is the number 1 word in books. It has been, Rita mentioned, HR strategy, marketing strategy, everything strategy. If you want to publish a book, make sure you put strategy in the title. Okay, you're going to be more successful. What happened with strategy? It was not popular. It became popular after the Second World War, where business schools started to use it and to teach it. Second word here. Sales. You need to sell. If you're a business, if you don't sell, you're not a business, you're a charity. So sales, there's lots of books on sales. Operations on the top, you see operations, and then projects. You see how this is converging? This is aligned with the other research. More and more topics around projects, how to manage the mess of projects that we have, this massive amount of projects. Finance always there, innovation, sorry, but even if it looks there's a lot, there's not as much a strategy. So another fact, just to confirm that projects are there, it's a disruption because the business model is very different. I talk to many CEOs and executives asking, how much time do you spend looking at your strategic projects? They say, well, we have like a project review meeting every 3 months. And we spend 2 hours to review 60 projects. And I say, wow, that's not going to be the case very soon. If you want to be on top of your business, very soon you'll need to dedicate 2 to 3 days a week overseeing, supporting, running some of these strategic initiatives. Not only that, but you will need also to manage small projects, exploration projects, very small experiments, the big part far away. So your time, if you're not doing that today, will shift to oversee projects. That needs different skills, completely different skills. Let me ask you, how many of you have received a project management, project leading training of 3-4 days? Raise your hand. Half of the room, that's very good. You have a job in the future. That's good news. I can tell you, I've done part of my research, how many of the top MBAs in the world, MBAs, I'm not looking for masters or teach project management as part of the core curriculum, things that these future leaders will need. Only 2 out of the top 100 MBAs in the world teach project management. Only 2. They still teach you operations. They teach HR, strategy. Project management is optional amongst 80 other electives. This has to change. Okay? First action for you. Learn project management, the basics, project leadership. It's not too complicated, but you need to learn, okay? And be aware that you are part of the success of all the projects running in your organization. You as a sponsor play a huge role in these transformation projects. It's not something that you launch and you come 3 months after, okay? First thing is the trend. This is hitting us hardly, with the speed of change, even more. Second, we talk about being agile. Have you ever seen an agile organization? I will try to picture an agile organization. Let me show you 2 cities which you could consider as organizations. One city here, you know that city, beautiful city. We were there. Erin came to teach to us. Rome, beautiful city. Second, New York City. Imagine these are 2 organizations, and we have a transformation project, digitalization. We want to be digital, and the project goes from A to B. Which organization is going to go faster, more agile? Rome, nice, you know people, you meet people, you need to make connections. What happens in New York City? You go fast. That's an agile object. You want to be like that. European companies are mostly like that. It's who you know, who you all favors. It's very much into the network. It's a nice trip. You stop, you have a cappuccino, enjoy the views. Here is about the getting things done. Asian companies are very much like this. Startup are like this, lean and fast. So what's happening here? This is one of the biggest and hardest changes that companies have to experience, especially the old ones. Removing that structure, which is 100 years old, and which is based on functions, hierarchical, top-down. That doesn't work. That's one of the biggest impediments of execution of projects. So that's the old structure, silo-based. The new one is project-driven. There's no other way that you can be agile, but forcing teams and project teams to work transversally is the only way that react fast. Actually, Steve Jobs was one of the first one using Apple this way. He was spending lots of time on the first Mac. He created project teams for each of their products, and he was spending 2-3 days on each of them. Every time, the Mac, the iTunes, the iPhone, he was the sponsor, but he was in the mess. Full-time teams, shift, radical transformation. You're saying to the guy of sales, listen, half of the team is not going to report to you anymore. They're going to be full-time in this massive transformation we're going. Full-time. And your budget is cut in half because we need to put it in the project. And half of your time you're going to dedicate project. Massive change. If you get it right, you will become agile. Okay? Very, very hard to do. Very hard. There's actually some good examples. This is Stan Richard, an advertising company in the US, top 5, basically, 600 staff. The guy was so fed up with all these reporting structures, he canceled all the job titles. He said, the only job title I want here, project managers. Since then, everything runs. Huge. So think about, because this is a big blocking factor. Action 2. Transform into project-driven. It's not enough to just set up a project office. You're making changes in the organization. You're shifting the power from being like this to being transversal. Okay? That's the difficult part. It's not just launching projects, setting a PMO. That's not enough. That's just step 1 in a long change. You need very strong leadership to make that change. Okay? It's the only way you can break silos and to become more fast and react faster. Okay? Action number 2. Let me ask you here another question. Who works in a company that sells products? Insurance, banks? Raise your hand. About 60, 70, 80%. Guess what? Forget about selling products. My vision is that very soon products will become part of a project. A few months ago, I was talking to one of the top 5 guys in Philips Healthcare. They call them health tech. They're becoming also a technology company. The healthcare part. Philips is very good. They've tried to transform. They had 3 businesses. They were successful in the 3 businesses. They actually took the tough decision of getting rid of the Lighting, which was the first business in Philips, 120 years old company. They said, we let go Lighting. It was painful, very painful, like dropping your mother and running away. Healthcare. The guy, I had a very interesting interview talking about execution and transformation project. They've gone through a huge transformation. And the guy tells me, his name is Bas. And Bas tells me, listen, we've been very successful in transformation, but we don't see the results on our top line. We still have problems. We don't get the sales and that growth that we were promised with this transformation. So we've decided that as from next year, we're not going to sell products anymore. And I say, Bas, what? Can you repeat that? You're providing all the MR, the scanners, the medical devices in hospitals. You're telling me you're not going to sell that anymore? And I say, yes, Antonio. What we're going to start selling, as from next year, we're going to start selling projects. I said, what, Bas? You're going to selling projects? This is massive. Yes, we realize that we can make much more money if we sell projects. We're going to go to the local authorities, and we're going to discuss and set up a hospital with them. We're going to do the design, the feasibility. We're going to build it with them. We're going to run them. And we're going to put, of course, our products. And we're going to put together the best people around and the best product. But Philips is going to selling projects. We can sell a project of 15 years as opposed one product, one time, which is going to be commoditized and the price drop in 3-6 months. That's massive. All of you who are selling products today, think twice. It's massive. There's an impact on every function in your business. We were discussing with Bas. The marketing function is completely different. You don't sell one product. You sell an experience. You change your revenue stream. Your projections are 15 years long, not just quarterly or monthly. The sales for skills, you sell to a business leader, a business idea, not just a product. Pricing model is not the same price in a product where you know the cost and variable cost than a project with so many variable things. So huge transformation. And let me take you to even more long-term vision. If my prediction is that companies will no longer sell products, but they will sell projects. Take the example of Nike. We all love Nike. We go to a Nike shop, and we buy a pair of shoes to go running or go back to the gym. Imagine if this concept of not selling products anymore applies to Nike. Nike, my guess is in 5 years, 10 years, they will sell you projects. You want to run the New York Marathon, come to Nike. We're going to develop that project together. That aspiration that you're going to have, Nike will do it for you, together with you. We'll give you the shoes, of course, and all the dress up, but we're going to put you a personal trainer, we're going to design a plan, we're going to schedule nutritionist talks, we're going to monitor that with you all the time. That's the new project for Nike. You'll go to Nike not for their products. You're going to Nike for their projects, for their dreams, to meet your dreams, to meet your aspirations. That's massive, again, transformation. Instead of just do it, together we can do it. Amazing. And what goes for you is start thinking about selling projects. Start thinking about expanding. That works for banks, insurance, retail. Think about how you can start making projects out of your products. Or you will be part of somebody else's project. And you will be dying. This is an urgent call for action. Last part, before I go to a final story. This is something for me, if there's one thing that you should remember from my presentation, maybe for the 2 days, this is very practical. But it's the one thing that can create a huge impact, massive impact in your organization, in your projects, in your people. One of the biggest issues I see is that it's very hard to prioritize. We try to do too many things, and we lose focus very quickly. So I'm going to tell you a real story to see the impact of prioritization in your people, to see how objectives and KPIs affect people working for you. Yeah? I'm going to tell you the story about Gina. Gina works for the postal office. I know you have one in Denmark. I know they're not doing very well. When was the last time you sent a postcard? People don't send postcards. I'm sure you sent a WhatsApp and a Facebook and whatever. You use your phone. You don't use the post anymore. Gina loves her job. We were talking yesterday about people loving her job. She does love her job. She's been working 7 years in the post, and she loves to make people happy, bringing letters, packages. She loves to walk around, to know people, to interact with people. But she knows that you guys, you're not using postcards anymore, so her job is going down. Postal Services company is struggling, big time. 3 to 6 months, if they don't turn around, the company is going to go bankrupt. So the CEO of the Post takes the team of executives to an offsite. And you know, offsites, I don't know why, but they're always in very nice places. There's a chateau, there's wine, champagne, and then they start thinking, and what should we do? Top consultants. We had top consultants, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, all of them, to help us define the new strategy. Because we want to save the company. So after this offsite, the CEO calls a town hall meeting. Imagine I'm the CEO of the Post. You're all working like Gina, delivering letters and packages. You all love your job, but you know your job is at risk. So I call you in, and I say, dears, you know we've been offsite. You know we've been trying to find a solution to our problem. You know we're struggling. You know we have 3 to 6 months cash, and we want to turn the company around. We really appreciate. Also, I listened to your feedback. Yes? Last year we came with 7 objectives. I listened to you, too many. I'm also listening to you and reading some books about strategy, saying that communication is the key factor. So I'm here communicating to you, very simple. So this is what I need you to do when you're working tomorrow to save the company. Just 2 things, 2 objectives. More simple than that, impossible. If you do this right, we're going to save the company that we love, and you're going to keep your jobs for at least 5 more years. So what is it? First, I want that we are a bit more efficient. Yeah? You all need to be a bit more efficient. We can deliver faster, and that will increase our volumes. So instead of 6 seconds, do it in 5. Okay? It's not much. Please, go ahead. Second and last strategic objective, customer satisfaction. We're here for the customer. So please smile more. Even if you're tired at the end of the day, smile. Okay? That's key. Only with these 2 things we'll save our company. Of course, you're super excited. It's simple. There's just 2 we can implement. It's great for us. Let's go and do it. So you're doing your job. It's the day after. And you see, after dropping like 44 times letters in the afternoon, you're going to a door, and the door opens, and there's an old lady. And the old lady said, Gina, come here. I want to talk to you. Gina goes super happy because customer service is going to be great. But while she's walking to the old lady, she stops and she says, how about efficiency? It's not going to be 5 seconds. I might spend 10 seconds, 30 seconds. If she wants to talk, maybe an hour. What do I do? What do I do? I cannot call the CEO. He's in private jet. He's gone. I need to make the decision here, now. So I'm going to put you in that situation. Give you 5 options. I'll come down. Focus on efficiency, ignore the lady. Okay, think about that. Focus on efficiency, tell the lady, I call you when I'm done. Okay, hold there, I come back. Focus on efficiency, small chat, in and out. Bad weather, Odense, robotics, nice, go. Option 4, focus on the customer, go in, have a coffee, stay as much as she wants. Option 5, customer satisfaction, go in, have a coffee, stay as much as you want. Try to sell her the latest app for tracking goods through the post. I'll let you think 1 second, and I want to hear your views. Okay, raise your hand. Who goes for option 1? Option 1, efficiency. Nobody cares? Nobody cares about efficiency? In Germany, everybody would have raised their hand here. Option 1. Okay. Option 2. Raise your hand. Nobody? Option 3. Raise your hand. Some people there. Okay, I want to hear you. Why option 3? Why option 3?
Because I think it's important to, you fail if you don't focus on efficiency, that's for sure, right? But you need, at the same time, to take care of the customer. So, try to balance.
Perfect. Try to balance both objectives. Try to make it work. So I saw a few people here. Option 4. Why option 4?
I would be very interested in hearing her views on the post. And if I were lucky, I would get a bright new idea.
Very nice. Hearing about your customers. We heard that yesterday as a great tool for improving. So option 4, some people. Option 5, these are the salesmen. Quite a lot of salespeople here. Yeah? What's the point here? What's the point? All the answers are good. All the answers are good. What's going to happen to the post? What happens to the post? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing happens. Because all of you were right, but all of you took different decisions. So my strategy, which I defined very clearly with 2 objectives, which I'm sure all of your companies have, goes down the drain. Goes down the drain. We never think when we set strategic objectives, what happens in the ground floor? What happens when people have to take decisions? And that's a problem when you're talking about execution and projects. Let me give you another example. There's an airline which, if you fly once, you'll never fly it again. It's called Ryanair. I don't know if you try Ryanair. But what happens with Ryanair? If you work for Ryanair, do you have all these problems? Do you have all these choices? What are the choices if you work for Ryanair? Only one. They don't care about the customer. They make it very clear. We're here to just be the most efficient company, the most cost-effective, and to bring you on time. That's all. If you want us, you come. If not, we don't care. The pilot, the stewardess, the people on the ground, the CEO will always choose number 1. What happens with that company? It's the number 1 airline company in Europe. Why? Because they're extremely focused. Why? Because their priorities are clear. Most of the companies, their priorities are everywhere, and that's not priorities. If you're Amazon, Jeff Bezos, most customer-centric company in the world, every time there's a problem, they pay you back. They ship it back. For them, the customer go first. Every time there's a question, a decision to be made in Amazon between these trade-offs is going to be for the customer. So that's what I'm telling you. If there's one thing that you can act as a management team tomorrow, it's about this. When people have to make choices and trade-offs, what's the priority? Is it the customer? Is it efficiency? Is it safety if you're in pharma? That will make everything goes faster. Everybody runs in the same direction. And you'll fly very quickly. Tough, yeah? I discussed this more I call it the hierarchy of purpose. Your priorities belong to your purpose. It was covered also in previous talks, so I'm not going to dwell that. One recommendation when talking about strategy and making these priorities a strategy, it has to be painful. I hate to go to a strategic workshop when everybody finished the workshops and they're all smiling and drinking and having fun, and it was a great workshop, and we decided so many things. That's not strategy. I know you had some of them where everybody just lives very happy. A strategy session is when you take the tough calls, when it's uncomfortable, when you feel like you're not sure. We're not sure, we're changing. We're leaving our current business. It feels very uncomfortable, but we believe this is the way. That's strategy. Never again go to a strategy workshop when everything feels good. Then you didn't do strategy. You had a nice chat, networking, that's great. Okay? Painful. And the last thing, and it's just very quickly, it's a story I always tell, and it's linked to what has been said before, but I think the best mechanism to engage people at work, in communities, government, schools, is through projects. Projects are the best, I don't know if it's a business model or concept. A project engages both sides of the brain. It allows for creativity, it allows for visioning, it allows to set a stretch target, but then you have the practical things. You have a deadline, you have something to plan, you have some challenges. So it's the best form to get that engagement, but get things done. Yes? And let me finish with this story. You know, we talk about the moonshot. I'm going to tell you one part of that project. The race was first to go to space, actually. In the Cold War world, they were not fighting anymore. They're fighting in technology, research. One of the big battles was to bring the first man or woman in the space and bring them back alive. If you leave them there, that doesn't count. They had to come back. And the Americans, very confident, we're going to make it. We're going to be the first. Yes, we can. What happened? Yuri Gagarin, the USSR, sent the first man to space and back. Yeah? That pissed off terrible the Americans, you know. They cannot. That was just a war. We're going to win the battle. What happens after? A few weeks only, JFK says we're going to be the first country to send the first man to the moon, bring them back alive again. Yeah, they have to be bring back alive. The great guy, this was a project leader. He put a deadline. He said by the end of the 60s. Imagine JFK would have never put a deadline. We were still looking for someone to go to the moon. He put a deadline who focused everybody. Deadlines are like tattoos in your brain. People remember them by the end of the 60s. So the story goes, NASA works, the whole country works on that project, massive project, impossible project. 1967, the press has a whole day in the NASA. They interview the chairman, the CEO, all the executives, the R&D people. At the end of the day, so this is BBC, CNBN, HBC, all the people go, 150 journalists. They go through the whole day. At the end of the day, they cross a lab, and they see this guy cleaning, obviously. And they close the guy and they say, what's your name? What are you doing here? My name is Michael. And they ask him, what are you doing here? And he says, I'm helping to put the first man on the moon. The guy answers, I'm helping to put the first man on the moon. When you achieve that in your projects, you'll achieve anything you want. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, Antonio. That was terrific. So 2 great presentations in terms of looking at the hard and soft nature of making things happen. So Erin, I'd like to start off with you and reflect back on something which happened yesterday.
Okay.
Because right on this stage yesterday, at about this time, 11:45, we had Jonas Ridderström, a Swede, and we have Alf Rein, a Finnish guy, and we had lots of Danes and some Norwegians in the audience. And I guess many people who are in the audience today work in organizations where they are Nordic organizations. So you've got those 4 different nationalities working together.
Yeah.
How well should it work?
Well, so maybe you already touched on this yesterday, but it is interesting. I mean, I was giving a lot of examples about really big cultural differences, so the Danish company in China. But we do have research that shows that some of the most, there's been some research that's been done with expatriate failure rates. And it looks at people moving from one country to another who have to move home early because they're not able to succeed in that new culture. And no, it's not about Scandinavia, but the highest expatriate failure rate was Americans moving to the UK. And I think people are often surprised to find that two cultures that speak the same language would have so much difficulty. So there's a word for that. The word is cultural dissonance. And we see that often when cultures have similar languages and they have external attributes about the culture that are similar, that we underestimate how difficult it will be to merge those cultures. So I actually think that that's very common, that if you're working across a region like the Nordic region, that people would think, well, you know, we don't really need to think about cultural differences, but it's the small cultural differences that often cause the biggest problems.
And so somebody was explaining to me, I don't know whether this is true, that Danes tend to argue a lot with the Swedes, but they get on well with the Norwegians. Is this true? They get on well with the Norwegians, but they argue with the Swedes. So what kind of factors might be behind that?
Well, I don't know about that specific
No,
comment,
but what kind of
but I will say, like, okay, if I just think about this audience here, or across Scandinavia, I mean, one of the dimensions we see a really big difference between Danish and Swedish is how much people disagree openly. So the Danish culture has a much stronger positioning towards open and strong disagreement as seen as something positive in the team and organization. I think you call it sparring, is that right? And you like to have these discussions, you disagree with one another. Okay. And the Swedish are highly on the avoid confrontation side. So there are two cultures that are, you know, geographically close. You can understand one another's language, I understand. But this type of thing can lead to all sorts of confusion.
And so if I find that there's a culture which is very different from mine, what do I do?
Well, so let me, can I stand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do what you want.
Thank you.
You can dance.
I'm gonna. Okay. Okay. Well, I just thought. I mean, I just thought when you said, "What do I do?" I mean, often people ask me the question: "Is it, you know, Erin? Of course, I have my own style, my authentic personality. Is it better for me when I'm working internationally? Is it better for me to be authentic, or is it better to be flexible?" And I just wanted to kind of clarify that when you're working internationally, it's best to be both. Right? So global leadership is about having your left foot, that's your authentic foot. That's the foot that's the most natural, the most comfortable to you. You know, this is your style. But if you're working internationally, you also always need to be working on your other foot, on developing the techniques and methods to adapt your style to the population that you're working with to get the results that you need. And, you know, this is very easy for me to dance around. In truth, of course, if you get tired or you get stressed, you might find you're always kind of snapping back to your authentic style, but this is like a muscle. The more you work on it, the better you get at it. And those of you who have really worked on this right foot, the thing is that now you have a choice. You can choose, you know, next week, I'm a Danish person, next week when I'm working with those Swedes, I think I'm gonna have a meeting that's more in their style. I think I'll have better results. And the next week, you know, during the performance review, I think I'm gonna do it on my style. I think I'll have better results. This is global leadership, and I think that probably each of you can imagine at least one person you know who works internationally who doesn't have a right foot, right? And the problem with these people is that they're stuck. They don't have a choice. So, I mean, whatever culture we're working across, we need to learn these techniques so that we can choose.
Fantastic. Okay, I was going to say that the idea of creating the culture map was great because it's such a kind of a viral concept which, you know, spreads across, and a great name for a book. But I love the dance even more now. So that could be the next one.
Thank you.
Antonio, let's ask you a question, and I want you to pretend to be a culture expert too.
Okay.
Because you've lived and worked across the world, haven't you?
Yes,
From Spain to Mexico to America, and now here in, where do you live now?
In Brussels.
In Brussels now. Okay, interesting. And project managers are typically seen as quite kind of disciplined people,
yes.
Quite analytical, quite strict, quite structured. So in your experience, what kind of cultures make the best project managers?
I think it's a good point, Peter. That's maybe the past project managers was very, very disciplined. I think best project managers come from engineering background. They're very, very rigorous. They calculate everything. They calculate all the risks. They have action plans for everything. So more the engineering world. Today is more into what's the benefits, what's the impact, how you connect to people. So I think it's a bit what Erin is knowing how to balance. Sometimes you need to be disciplined and follow the plan. Sometimes you need to adjust your plans. So it's more a skill set that you're building today, but you absolutely need that discipline. If you're not disciplined as a project manager, people will notice and will become chaos. So you build on that discipline, but you become more into the benefits, into the business, into the transformation story. You're disciplined with your team. You sell the ideas to your stakeholders.
So we have to do the dance, the Erin dance.
Another dance.
Okay,
yes.
But you can't tell me where we find the best project managers.
I think there's project managers everywhere. Germany is well known for their projects, but they failed. So Germany, for example, if they do a World Cup, their stadiums are 6 months in advance ready. If you go to Brazil, they're ready not even when the World Cup starts. It's always last minute, but they fail miserably in the Berlin airport, which is catastrophic. So it's hard to just point one culture. Yeah. Maybe you know better.
No? Okay. Does anybody have a question? So we've talked a lot about the hard and soft, the project culture, and the human culture. Anybody got a question? Okay, so 2 questions in the center tables. So we've got some microphones coming towards you. Tell us what your name is and where you work.
Hello, Klaus Bisgaard from Sirona Dental. Antonio, I'm curious to hear your perspectives on what Yuri
Can you
told
just
us.
speak a little bit louder?
Louder, okay, yeah. I'm curious to hear the perspectives of what Yuri told us this morning about more crowd-based algorithms, purpose-driven, into the skills of project management.
Well, for me, this is something, I think kind of Yuri mentioned, also hidden, sous-entendu, like Erin, behind the lines, that the new leaders will be project managers. They're working with teams which are not only from their own company, but they built a team, an ecosystem. And it's not that you need to be an expert on these things, but you need to understand. You're more like a project coach and building all pieces together. So you need to be aware, you need to understand. You don't need to be an expert. I think that's going to impact mostly on the operations side. But more and more, I'm sure they're working into project mode, small experiments, small things that you progressively build. That's my view. So a project manager today will be perfectly valid in 10 or 15 years. Actually, it's going to be on one of the top jobs, I'm convinced.
Okay, but one of the things you were saying to me was that increasingly, as we get more and more projects, and as we move towards that 70%, the challenge will be to manage all of the projects together as a portfolio. So we become not just project managers, but portfolio managers.
That's when it comes to complex. I work for an organization. We have 800 projects. 3,000 people working in projects. It's very hard to manage that. So unless you're very strong on the prioritization and say, okay, you need to do small projects, fine, do them the way you want, but let's focus on the top 10. These are the top things that will bring us to the next level. I'm working with a big pharma company, and they have like growth platform, and that's built out of 12 strategic projects. From that platform of projects, they're expecting 1.5 billion increased revenue in 5 years. So it's about making choices, keeping focus, giving some freedom to the people, but as a management team, having very clear, everybody should know these are the top 5, top 10 strategic initiatives. Leave some room for experimentation. This is key. One thing which is happening, corporate boards are starting to pay more attention on where these projects go. Digital, M&A, they're playing much more active roles. The boards too.
Okay, let's go to the question on the next table back. Tell us your name, where you're from.
My name is Michael Frisch. I'm coming from Nordea. Looking at the cultural aspects, it seems a bit as a point-in-time kind of observation that these are the cultures and these are the differences. I'm wondering how this is evolving or will evolve over time with the world being more connected via the internet, more information being available to more people, the social media. Yeah. So if you're seeing that the cultures are converging to a certain degree, and if so, in which of your various parameters that you see the most convergence?
Okay, so yeah, cultures are changing. Obviously, we know that, right? Because we look at our kids, their culture is different than ours was. And they're changing in different ways on different dimensions. So the dimensions that we looked at today together on the low to high context, the whole world is moving to be more and more low context, which happens with globalization, right? That doesn't mean that we're converging. It means that the whole dimension is shifting. So like even the US is becoming more low context. The less we work in monocultural spaces, the less we're able to pick up subtle messages in the air, the more we have to put things in writing and clarify. The second dimension that we looked at, the direct and indirect negative feedback, on that dimension we see the world is changing, or countries are changing, but not in the same directions. So for example, my culture, the American culture, the younger generation is much less direct than my generation was, which was less direct than the generation above us. We can see the opposite in China, that the younger generation is much more direct, the above them they were more direct. But there's not, that doesn't mean it's convergence. The Netherlands, I see no movement. Generationally, it's about the same. So we see countries moving around and we try to track those changes, those shifting, but I would like to say that overall, I rarely see that the world is becoming significantly more similar, which I think is a misunderstanding that we have. Instead, I see we're working more frequently together. Culture impacts us more, so we need to understand those differences more. Thank you.
And I guess what you're saying also is that culture is not just geographical anymore. It's driven by other ways in which we influence people.
And that we are working so much over media that we have cultural differences impact us in all sorts of ways, then we don't even realize what's going on.
The Netflix culture, the Instagram culture,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Okay, quick question, anyone desperate to ask one more question?
Desperate.
Okay, so final question. We build this as hard and soft, and I think you were the hard and you were the soft. Is it real, or is that not true? I mean, is culture just as hard as it is soft, and is project management just as soft as it is hard? What do you think?
Well, I think the term soft is usually used to speak about people.
Yeah.
So certainly, if I'm speaking about soft as people, I mean, what I work on is understanding the psychology of a group, and people make up groups. But I also think we can have a hard approach, a project management approach to dealing with our cultural differences and trying to, map them out and understand them concretely.
And what I think is really interesting about your culture map is not just how we work together in organizations, but also, if we're of a certain culture, who can we sell to most effectively? Who can we market to? How do we align our brand on the outside with the markets we wanted to address with our organization culture on the inside?
Really,
and so they must be really interesting questions in terms of the ways in which you choose strategically where to position your company and where to focus your growth.
I think so.
And Antonio, are you really a hard guy, or are you really a soft cookie?
You have to be hard. You need to be hard. You need to respect deadlines. But on the other hand, you need to engage people. You need to inspire passion. You need to inspire a vision and put that idea about that project. And that's what I say. And projects allows you to work on both aspects. And you have the pressure of it has to be done by, like this event, there's no way you can delay. It was the 9th and the 10th of May. And the pressure was there. So I think that's the beauty about projects, that gets you focused in a world which is extremely unfocused. And you can play with both sides.
And it's 12 o'clock exactly.
Wow, bravo.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Erin Mejer and Antonio Nieto-Rodriguez. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a great audience.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, so we're now going to take that learning in terms of the project culture, the people culture, and think about how do we make transformation really happen? And as a leader, how do you make that transformation happen in your organizations? And this is going to be a case study, a real deep case study into one company to really understand how did they make transformation happen in their organization. So it's going to be led by the coach, and then she's going to explain, and she's going to bring her client, the CEO, with her. So the coach for this session and one of the world's leading executive coaches, started off life understanding people. So by studying anthropology and archaeology, actually, understanding people. Then became an HR manager and real leader in terms of organization and management development, working on change projects in organizations as diverse as PepsiCo, the Gucci Group, and many others as well, like Shell. She's now the coach to many of the world's leading executives, and she has a brand new book, which is called